So good evening. We will call the meeting to order. Stephanie, if you could do the roll call, please.
Yes. Inspector Cantos.
Here.
Inspector Doris.
Here.
Inspector Almer.
Here.
Inspector Roberts.
Here.
Inspector Pritz.
Here.
Inspector Zeke.
Here.
Inspector Stanfield.
Here.
Okay. Can we do the pledge to the flag? Excuse me, and the peace pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the peace pledge. I am a peace builder. I pledge to praise people, to give up put down. I will build peace at home, at school, and in my community every day. Thank you. Due to the state declared COVID-19 emergency and the requirement for social distancing, this board meeting shall be conducted virtually with no persons present at the district offices, noting that it is unfeasible to have anyone present at the district offices for this meeting. Can we have someone make that motion? Read the motion.
I move that the board declares the COVID-19 emergency to be a bona fide emergency and authorize that the board meeting to proceed by audio and or video conferencing.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, roll call, please.
Yes. Inspector Cantos.
Aye.
Inspector Pritz.
Aye.
Inspector Doris.
Aye.
Inspector Zeke.
Aye.
Inspector Almer.
Aye.
Inspector Stanfield.
Aye.
Inspector Roberts.
Aye, motion carried. Dr. Rouse?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we begin our reports with a presentation from the Fine Arts Department. Mr. Adam Russick is here tonight, and he'll show his camera and introduce himself, and then show his presentation and be available for comments or questions after. Adam?
Thank you, Dr. Rouse, inspectors and visitors. My name is Adam Russick, and I am honored to serve as the Fine Arts Coordinator for our district. This evening, I would like to share with you highlights of our wonderful department, including a performance by our district mariachi group.
Our Fine Arts Department consists of our 10 elementary art and music teachers and 4 junior high art teachers, 4 junior high band teachers, 4 junior high choir and general music teachers, and 4 junior high orchestra teachers serving all of our K-8 art and music students. This includes our 97 fifth grade band students, 130 fifth grade orchestra students, and our junior high students, which include 173 band, 126 choir, and 206 orchestra members. Some of our resources that we provide for our staff include the Quaver platform for our general music classrooms, including the new edition of the Quaver SEL platform, which will be demonstrated a little later by Ms. Haley Hughes. Our newest addition for our ensemble students and our junior high music students is the Music First platform. This platform, which was demonstrated by Mrs. Jennifer Winveen during the Gomper Spotlight on the Arts presentation, is a learning management software that provides assessment, lessons, oral training, and notation programs for student use. We have also continued our subscription to the Art of Education, providing professional development and resource planning for our art teachers, and the Scholastic Art magazine for our junior high art students. Our remote learning structure has continued to see the arts thrive in Joliet 86. In the top photo, you see the band students of Washington Junior High working on their breathing with Mr. Barnes, and the bottom photo includes the students of the Hufford Junior High Band with Mr. Shaw working on their instruments through the Music First platform. Our elementary art and music students have worked on creating positive self-portraits and working on the Quaver SEL curriculum. Because students have their own Chromebooks at home, this has allowed for our art teachers to get real-time and immediate updates on student progress as they complete their masterworks. Next, Ms. Rachel Tater and Mrs. Christine Edelman would like to present their mariachi students as they perform for you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Edelman, and I am the Gompers Junior High Band Director and one of the co-directors of the Joliet Mariachi Band. My instructional focus in mariachi is trumpet, beginning guitar and vihuelas, and vocals. Teaching mariachi over Zoom has certainly come with its challenges, but our students have really risen to the occasion. We are so proud of all that they have learned this year, and I really hope that you enjoy their quick performance this evening. Thank you so much for your continued support of the mariachi program and the music department in general in Joliet 86.
Hello, my name is Rachel Tater, and I am the Gompers Orchestra Director as well as one of the co-directors for our mariachi group. I currently teach advanced guitar, violin, and guitarrón for this group. It has been my pleasure working with students all across our district and sharing the passion of mariachi music. The students have been working incredibly hard this year to be able to perform for you virtually. The song we will be performing today is called Riptide by Vance Joy in the mariachi style. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for your support this year.
Fantastic.
This year's focus in the department has been on equity and ensuring that we are meeting the diverse needs of our students and community. Each of our 4 junior high music programs were included in a new social justice multimedia artwork called the Neal Consortium. This project includes junior high school, and university programs across the country. The goal of the project is to educate ourselves, our staff, and our students to be honest and aware, have open hearts, and move toward social justice. The project includes poetry, works of art and media, and a composition which our band, choir, and orchestra students can perform. Our students have also worked on creating their own additional lyrics for songs of social change, as demonstrated by the Gompers Band's verses of We Shall Overcome. In January, I utilized our Google platform and sent a poll to our junior high band, choir, and orchestra students to receive feedback on their perceptions of their music experience. Beyond their likes and dislikes of their experience, we dove deeper into their understanding of the music that they perform, including representation of the students themselves. Using the Institute for Composer Diversity as a research-based model to serve as our guide, past performance repertoire was analyzed for the last few years to determine what sort of composer has been performed most often. These numbers were then compared to the suggested programming for a mixed historical and progressive music program. The junior high music staff has met to discuss these findings and brainstorm ways to increase student representation. Progress has already been made in the music being given to the students, music being listened to in class, resources provided to staff, and also in planning for future performance. Additional checks of progress are currently underway, and a final check for this year will be complete in May. Though we are still working our way through the 2020-2021 school year, we are well underway for next year. This year, we were able to redesign our choir students' performance attire, and they will now be wearing professional-looking robes and stoles for all of their performances. Each stole, the colorful part that goes around the singer's neck, has one side that displays the school monogram in color, and on the back side will be a red and white design that will be used by our all-city ensemble. Next year, we will also be making an adaptation to our beginning band and orchestra program, allowing for students to begin band and orchestra in 5th grade as opposed to 4th grade. This will allow for small groupings of students and more individualized instruction, which has been shown in research to positively impact student learning. Students will receive information about recruitment and instrument rental at the end of their 4th grade year so that they can begin immediately at the start of their 5th grade year. Students in the junior high program see a retention rate significantly higher than that within the elementary buildings, and so it is our goal to introduce the instruments to the students 1 year later and then provide that stable and daily learning environment in the junior high only 1 year later. The next steps for this process will be to finish recruitment documentation and send it out to our 4th grade families, and then schedule our summer camps in which our incoming 5th graders will receive their instruments from Quinlan and Fabish and receive their first lessons in small group settings. This camp allows for students to quickly build on their learning in back-to-back days, as opposed to waiting until the first days of school and only having weekly lessons. Another element that we look forward to this coming year are our all-city ensembles, including band, choir, mariachi, and orchestra. Next, it is very important to continue to highlight the importance of our Music Parents Association and all of the work that they have done this year for our students. They have sponsored guest speakers and provided honorariums for joining and speaking with our students. They are developing private lesson scholarships for our students and have sponsored the commissioning of new musical works. Finally, I would like to introduce Ms. Haley Hughes, who will speak with you about the Quaver platform.
Good evening. My name is Haley Hughes, and I'm one of the elementary music teachers. I have been with the district for 4 years now since the Alpha program was started. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Quaver Music and how the team uses it. Let me tell you, this has been a wonderful resource to have during these unprecedented times. Quaver Music has 36 pre-made lessons per grade level based on national music standards. And these are wonderful for our team to be able to say, okay, I'm going to teach whisper, talk, shout, and sing today to kindergarten, and we can pull up the lesson and it's right there for us. You can teach these lessons as is. I use the pre-K lessons for my students at Big Pen in the LIFE program. These make for wonderful adaptive music lessons, especially in the remote setting. One thing that our team is huge on is creating our own customizable. So here is a Quaver lesson that I created all about steady beat, and I'm able to seamlessly pull in other resources. So this is a YouTube video, but it looks like it's part of the Quaver platform, which is very nice. Animated songs we're constantly using. audio files, and so on and so forth. One big thing we've been able to do this year is connect with our students via the Quaver platform. So giving our students assignments directly connected to our classroom. So this is one that I did with my students, a rap project where students got to create their own rap this year. So this gave them everything that they needed on how to write a rap. And then finally, we have really leaned into the Quaver SEL curriculum this year, which again has so many lessons per grade level directly related to the CASEL standards, which has been wonderful, especially in this time when we know that self-care and social emotional learning is so huge. I know this was very brief, but I hope you've enjoyed hearing a little bit about what the music team is teaching our students right now. Thank you so much.
Finally, thank you for your time this evening and for your continued support of the Joliet 86 Fine Arts.
All right, and thank you again very much. I'd like to ask if you have any questions about our programs at this time that I might be able to answer for you.
I have
I
some
do
questions.
if that's okay. Oh, go ahead, Deb.
I was interested in your mariachi program. That seems to be very successful. How do the students get their guitars? Are they given to them by the district? Do they have to provide their own?
That's a great question. The guitars are provided by the district. At the beginning of the school year, we were able to meet the families outside the buildings and socially distance, hand out the guitars. And it's been a wonderful experience getting to provide those instruments for our students so that even more can take part.
Will they keep them over the summer if they're going to continue in the program?
That's something we still need to talk about and determine with all the directors.
And you have a camp for your fifth graders that are coming into the program. What is the cost for the camp? Is that something that's provided by the district, or is that something that the Music Parents Association provides the money for that?
Nope, that'll be provided by the district.
Okay. And what about your general music students? Are they able to participate in any of these other programs? Can they participate in the mariachi program, or do they have to be band or orchestra students?
No, we actually have a few students from our buildings that are not part of band, orchestra, and choir, and it's just another great way that we're able to provide more of our students the opportunity to take part in music.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just a couple real quick. One, thank you very much for the mariachi presentation. It was amazing. Great job. And it sounded like there's a lot of work went into that. So it sounded fantastic. Looking at your numbers there, I think it was on your third or fourth page. Can you help me in our specific, unique, I'll call it, situation we've been in this last year? Have we been able to maintain our numbers across, band, orchestra, choir, or have we slipped, or can you help us with where we're at there?
Yeah, I would have to relook at the complete numbers, but I know offhand I can say that our numbers are down a little bit this year. Part of that is because we didn't begin a fourth grade class this year because of the challenges with trying to get the students started through a remote setting. But we are looking forward to getting them back up as soon as we get back to in-person learning for all of our students.
Okay, well, that's great. And that actually leads me into my next question. Help me a little bit more with what's drive the data, I guess, that's driving that decision. I guess that would be almost counterintuitive to, we see little fourth graders that are extremely excited when they've received their instruments. So to move that to fifth grade, help me with what's exactly driving that?
So the students, when they begin, whether it's in fourth grade or in fifth grade, they are very excited. What we find is by the end of that fourth grade year going into fifth grade, that's when we start to see those numbers start to slip. And so the goal is to say, once they have it every day occurring in the junior high setting, that's when we would start to see that enthusiasm slip that little bit. So now we get to say, as a fifth grader, you've gone now once a week and we've practiced and we've gotten into learning your instruments. Now, next year, you get orchestra, you get band every day. And so that's the goal. And then talking with some of our other programs in the area that do start with fifth grade, they see a higher retention level throughout their entire program, and they don't see quite as big of a dip in between those early years as we do.
So your fifth grade numbers don't show the same dip as your fourth grade? Is that what I'm hearing?
Not as extreme of a dip, correct.
I'd like to know how many of your students have private lessons, and does that affect their excitement in staying in the program and growing?
You know, I don't know that number off the top of my head, Inspector, and I apologize for that. What I do know is we're actually working with some community partnerships right now to create private lesson scholarships with the MPA, as well as to create that partnership with these entities in the community to provide those professional private lessons to our students. So we are working on something like that to keep that enthusiasm going.
Right, because I'm one of those band moms that, you know, benefited from private lessons, but some, you know, there may be some people within the community that can do it pro bono, you know, to investigate. And it really does make your job easier if they get that extra training outside of school days.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, it's a wonderful idea.
I think it's great. Well, the performance was outstanding, and I think it's great that you give these kids these opportunities to build their self-esteem, something to work on outside of school, give them a sense of accomplishment. And I can't believe how great they sounded over the internet. It's hard for us to even do Pledge of Allegiance and sound in unison. And it was really fantastic. I appreciate the work you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the work that the directors do. That they're the real magicians here.
Hey, Adam. I just want to say thank you again for the great presentation. It was wonderful to hear from our students and teachers. I have a question that I don't even know you can answer tonight, but has there been any thought around kind of continuing programming for students when they get to high school? Do we know how our students are doing? Are they competitive? Are they staying in our arts programs in the high school? Is there any work around that kind of K-12 articulation that we talk about here at the board level?
We have actually been working on those conversations between myself and my counterpart at the high school district, as well as with all the directors. We do have just about every trimester, we try to get all of the directors together, all the orchestra directors, the choir directors, the band directors between the two districts. It's one of the great things about, you know, having Zoom right now is we're able to make those meetings work a little bit more easily. So we are working on that. We're working on the retention. We're working on getting those students those opportunities. In terms of the actual numbers and such, that I don't have right now with me. So I do apologize, but I know that we are working on trying to make sure that we do keep our students going into the high school district and beyond.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Just back real quick, I know we didn't have any fourth graders coming this year, but about how many do you get on an average year, COVID aside, ish? And do we know what the fallout rate is?
I would really hate to give a number and just be incorrect, and unfortunately I don't have that with me. I wasn't prepared for that. I apologize.
Okay, that's no problem. No problem. Thank you. Sorry, Tanya.
That's okay. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. The mariachi band was awesome. I agree with Inspector Stanfield. Like, and that was the internet. I can't imagine how awesome it would be to hear them play in person. And I know that this is a stressful time for everyone, so I'm sure that playing their instruments is helping to relieve some of that. And it helps that you are giving them a voice and asking them what are they looking for? What do they need? What do they feel they don't have? So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if I could just add, Adam, you've been with us now for a couple of years and really have stepped in and taken the program by the reins and are moving us forward in a very positive direction. And our directors work incredibly hard. I've been invited to a lot of different sessions where they've had special speakers this year to listen along with the students, and that's been amazing. And you know, the mariachi group, when they first started a year ago, it was in 1920, that school year, they had just started in the fall of 19, and at the winter concert in December, I'll never forget, it was their first performance. They'd been together maybe 2 or 3 months at the most. And I literally cried. It was so amazing how well they did so quickly. And so now to see the group having grown and even producing music over the internet is just fabulous. And the two directors are doing a fabulous job with that. And I know it's been opened up to junior high students across the district, which is fabulous as well. So that by being remote, that has made that even work more smoothly. So that's been fabulous. And everybody knows my love of the arts. So thank you. And keep our kids trucking forward.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Ross. Thank you, inspectors.
Dr. Rouse?
Okay, our next presentation, Dr. Natasha Campbell-Tomanoff and Mr. Nick Sacalariu will be presenting on an international teacher recruitment program that we would like to consider for the district. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Campbell-Tomanoff.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here tonight with you and present what I'm hoping to be a very good opportunity for not just our students and our staff, but for staff from several or many other countries, depending on what the turnout is and what we find as a good fit. So this is actually in collaboration with J1 Spirit Cultural Exchange. The next slide actually identifies what we decided was a true time to really reinvent our recruiting process and look at options that maybe haven't been considered in a while. So when we sat down to do projections for the 21-22 school year, we came to a kind of a scary time, to the extent that we're in a battle to fill about 12 bilingual positions. So at Marycrest and our kindergarten level, we are looking at 3 bilingual full-time positions. We also have 2 bilingual or EL resource programs at Marycrest in the special education department. We also have 4 elementary bilingual programs in grades 3 through 5. And then we also have 3 junior high bilingual resource and special education programs. So currently we are looking at, with retirements and things like that, we have about 14 openings for the 21-22 school year, and 12 of those are in our bilingual and EL resource areas or departments. The J1 Spirit program is actually created to give international teachers professional education and experience, and it provides the schools an opportunity to engage in cultural experiences from a variety of times from a variety of areas across the world. The J1 Spirit program has been authorized to be a visa sponsor, which means they are allowed to and work to recruit, screen, and provide support for any teacher candidates that they may send our way to review and determine if they would be a good fit for our Joliet culture. The teachers that we receive for screening and interviewing and hopefully recommend for hire can have a variety of endorsements, and those include pre-K through 12th grade, math endorsements, science endorsements, bilingual, and special education. The teachers that we bring on board or that we would recommend that we move forward with would actually participate in the program for 3 to 5 years. So what does that require from us? What do we require from the candidates? The district must be accredited, which of course we are. We must provide a full-time position with a salary and benefits that's commensurate with our teacher's contract, which of course we don't hire anybody in that role as a certified educator without providing that contract. It also requires that we provide a mentor and a supervisor for the teacher. Well, we already have in place for all of our new teachers in years 1 and 2. They receive a mentor already, and they go through the next bullet point, which is a new teacher orientation. Our new teacher orientation and mentoring program is a 2-year program. And of course, everyone gets a supervisor when they come into the district. So we meet all of those parameters. What should we be able to expect from the candidates? The candidates are screened before they're sent to us to verify that they meet state licensure requirements. So they're already on some level vetted with the requirements of ISBE. The candidates must also have 2 years of teaching experience and have a minimum of a bachelor's degree already completed. The candidate, even though they're international, they must be fluent in English, and they must, once they're with us, if we decide to bring them on, complete 2 annual cross-cultural activities within their classroom. And so in general, what we've talked about is those would be, of course, across the buildings, across the district, to ensure that all of our students are getting that experience. You know, there are then questions about how do you go about figuring out who would be a good fit? What's the process? So the application piece, which is really just an application for us as a district. We complete an agreement or a contract with J1 Spirit. And then we also confirm with them the openings that we plan to have or availability for placement of any candidates that we actually select or recommend for hire. The candidate selection process, they provide us profiles and videos that we are then able to go through and identify who we would like to interview. So we then select the candidate for interviewing, and from there, then we recommend to the board any candidates that we would like to move forward with and hire. And then just like anyone else, we would go through an onboarding process. Theirs is a little bit more involved because the teacher and the district have to work through the final application process and any applicable fees. The teacher, on the other, the recommended candidate or the recommended teacher would need to schedule and complete their visa. And of course, in the time of COVID, that's a little bit more of a complicated issue. There were several districts that were moving forward with this program last year in the state of Illinois, and it was put on hold because visas were put on hold. But that has now been lifted, and so we do believe that anyone that's recommended should be able to move that through that visa interview process and be able to come over to the United States for a job or a position that they're recommended for hire for. The teacher is then also in charge of making any travel arrangements to the United States. So, you know, it all sounds wonderful, but we've got to create a team. We've got to make sure that we're all working together. And so everybody says, well, you know, how do you get that done? What are the timelines and what are the costs? So we started working with this company, or at least hearing presentations from them and getting additional information probably back in January, if not December. But the applicant screening process is generally January through April. Candidate interviewing and recommended for hire is generally May through June, because if you get too far out, again, they've got to make it through that visa process, which is a several month process, usually about 8 weeks. The teachers then arrive in the United States and in the state for the school year, generally between July and the beginning of August. And that is because they need to get set up, they need to move into their locale, whatever their new home is going to be, whether they are sharing with another family or if they are moving into their own residence. Recommended district costs. So in the contract, which Nick can speak to, or I can speak to if there are specific questions, but there is a one-time fee per candidate of $1,500 through J1 Spirit, and that's their kind of upfront costs for that initial screening and finding candidates for us. Then anyone that we would recommend for hire, there is an annual $1,490 right now fee. That would be an annual fee for each person that we would move forward. There's also an insurance policy to say if anything happens, that we would pay monthly a $60 fee, which goes to reparations. So if anything happens here and we need to be able to get the candidate or the teacher back to their home country, that's kind of what that insurance policy covers, and that's $60 a month. In the contract, those pieces they can be shared with the candidate or the teacher, or the district can take on those expenses. Those fees are somewhat in line with some of the fees that we already pay for job fairs, job recruiting, things like that. And so we don't feel like those fees would be totally out of the spectrum for somebody that we could be bringing over to fill a high need area, such as a bilingual or a bilingual SPED or an EL resource position. So in general, some of the program questions, frequently asked questions are, how do the teachers become certified or licensed? Well, in Illinois, those teachers apply for a professional educator license through ISBE. And then Spirit, J1 Spirit actually works with ISBE or we work with the ROE to help them verify eligibility. The teachers live in the residence, in whether it's an apartment, again, they could be sharing with another family, but they make their own arrangements based upon information that we may provide, Spirit may provide, or they may find on their own as they are trying to figure out what their life will be like once they become part of the district. And then what kind of support does J1 Spirit provide when you talk about that upfront cost of $1,500 per candidate that we're actually recommending for hire? So that's not for screening, that's for anybody that we want to move forward with. They actually provide a program orientation. They check in with their participants monthly. They provide local support when needed, and they also make themselves available 24/7 for any emergencies that international teacher may have for whatever those reasons are. So that's kind of a general overview of the international recruiting program that we would look to be in collaboration with through J1 Spirit. I do believe in the past, Joliet has participated in something similar. It was probably about 5 or so years ago, but that program was actually through ISBE. And this is now a offshoot of that, but still in collaboration with them. So at this point, I would open it up to any questions that any of the inspectors had for me or for Nick or for related to the program.
Can I start real quick with a couple questions?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
The final reviews that you spoke of, will be done by the district, I'm assuming gets the final say. And will those be done, I know in this whole situation we're in right now, but will those be done in person where possible?
So right now they're not, because they're not in person. They would all be, the interviews and screening would be done virtually. So right now we have links to all of their documents and like a video clip of them kind of giving like a, all about me. And then from there, if any of the ones that we identify we would like to move forward with an interview for, then we would actually set up our normal interview committee, but it would be kind of like what we're doing right now, a Zoom with them to interview them with our bilingual coordinators and building principals as to where those staff would possibly be going. And so from there, we would be able to select them based upon that process.
Okay. And then I'm assuming this is driven by two issues, maybe. One, do we have the ability, I shouldn't say locally, domestically, do we have the ability to fill the 12 positions? And this is driven by
currently,
just really nice to see someone from an international standpoint to come help us with culture.
Yeah.
Or
so
can
we are still doing, so we are still doing recruitment locally. We haven't given up on that front. We do have, like, Mary Crest has a couple of student teachers, and I think Marshall has a couple of bilingual student teachers that we are looking to move forward with. So we're not talking about filling all 12 of those with international candidates. We're really just looking at this as possibly filling any of those hard to fill positions, or those positions that we really truly can't find someone for. I think other districts that we've talked to, they really weren't looking at any more than 2 or 3 candidates. And from the list that I've received, we really have I think we've gotten maybe 10 applications, and all of those don't necessarily meet even our initial requirements to be considered. So, this year we have 3 teachers that are on emergency licenses that were given by the, it was like an exception to the rule through ISBE. And we did research and reach out to the ROE and ISBE about would they extend those emergency licenses for those staff, and they will not. So those are coming to an end on June 30th. So that's right off the bat, 3 additional bilingual staff members that we are going to have to fill moving forward. We are working with those 3 staff to try to keep them on board in some way, shape, or form while they meet any other requirement ISBE has. But in general, they do not, ISBE is not looking to continue the emergency bilingual license that they use just for this COVID year or the pandemic year.
No, and that helps me, because my math shows we're looking at about $3,700 a position in addition.
Yeah. Yes.
And in all reality, whatever that ratio turns out to be, if it's 3 or 4 positions, that's kind of where I was heading with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a small number. I don't imagine that we would be more than 3 or 4 people at the most. So the districts that we looked at, they were going to bring 2, and the largest was 3. And they're much smaller districts, but we don't even have 10 fully vetted candidates to even review at this point.
Okay, all right. And I thought I heard you say, just one more, I apologize. I thought I heard
you're fine.
The contract that we're talking about is actually with the company, or the contract would be with the individual that we'd be bringing on? They would not actually be our employee, right?
No, they would actually be our employees. So that's one of the fees. So we actually sign a contract with the company. They're for lack of a better word, it would be like a headhunting company. Like the $1,500 is kind of for J Spirit, but the teacher is coming over and would be our employee and would be covered by our contract. The only thing that would be in addition for them would be that $60 a month insurance piece, which Nick could speak to a little bit more about, but it's really, if something happens medically and we need to get them back to their home country, that can be expensive. And so that $60 a month cost would be, it covers.
Okay. So to your point, then they'd be required to meet all the expectations,
Yes.
certifications, background checks,
Absolutely.
everything.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Tomanoff, first of all, I want to say, like, yes, I understand all of the kind of nitty gritty details that Inspector Pritz is getting into, but I also want to say this is just such an amazing opportunity for our students. And I know that your presentation, you says there'll be 2 annual cross-cultural activities, but I had an international teacher in high school, and it's all year long. Like, it is a cultural exchange that you're having every day in that classroom. And it really opened my eyes. It made me want to go and see the world. And so just what a great opportunity for our kids. So thank you for bringing this up. Even if it was just to fill a gap that we had, it's a great solution. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of concerns.
Yes.
We're signing a contract, or these teachers are signing a contract with us for 3 to 5 years. That is not a guarantee that we give our own new teachers. When we hire a teacher, they hire in for a year, and then they're evaluated continually for the first and
So,
into the
I'm
second
sorry,
year.
Ms.
But we can let them go.
Yes.
Come April, if we say you're not doing a good job, or this isn't working out either for you or for us. But is this in violation of our teacher contract? Because this is not how we hire teachers.
Can I, let me address that if I could.
Yeah.
It doesn't violate our teacher contract. First of all, only the employer determines the hiring of employees. Once they're hired, then the bargaining agreement applies to them. But the union doesn't control the hiring of teachers. And under this program, these teachers are subject to the same terms and conditions of employment as our regular employees, and they effectively become regular employees under the agreement and under the master collective bargaining agreement. So there's.
What I don't understand though is and we've all had teachers that we thought came in, were very promising, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out.
Right.
And if you're signing it, my question is, if you're signing an agreement with them for 3 to 5 years and you're bringing them here from another country and everything else, I mean, what if at the end of 6 months or a year, it's not working out? Then what?
The agreement is not 3 to 5 years with each individual teacher. Each individual teacher comes in, the agreements with the, let's call them the head, with Spirit. The agreement is to provide us candidates that we accept. Once we accept them, they're subject to the same employment or unemployment conditions as any other employee would be.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee of employment for them.
Yeah.
So when I read the slide, when I read the information and I listened to your presentation, it sounded as though each person was guaranteed, because they came here, a 3 to 5 year contract. And that was a concern that I had. I mean, this may work out wonderfully. This may be great for everybody, but in reality, we all know that sometimes, for whatever reason, they don't meet our expectations or we don't meet theirs.
Yes, I apologize if I inferred something different, Inspector Zeke. That is actually the length of time that they're allowed to participate. They cannot participate longer than 3 to 5 years, but they are subject to the same year-to-year renewal or non-renewal that our teachers are. Okay. So that is just the length of their visa. When they get their visa, they can't participate the length of their time cannot exceed 5 years unless they go through another process. But we're not guaranteeing them employment for 3 to 5 years. That's the maximum amount of time that they can participate.
Okay. And I know that we do not at this time require COVID vaccinations. Do we know if people coming from other countries are going to be required to be vaccinated?
I believe certain countries have a requirement coming over, but I do not have that information at this point. that would be the next step in the process, in the visa process, because again, the regulations have just changed in relation to even allowing people to get visas to come back into the country. So this is just that next step.
And Spirit guarantees, working with ISBE, that they are able to teach our sped ed students, because,
yeah,
you know, it's apples and oranges. I mean, what they may use as teaching directives and policies and procedures in their particular country may not necessarily be what we do here.
Correct. There is no one is brought over or approved or even recommended for hire unless they are ISBE licensed, endorsed through the state. So we won't get to the point of bringing them to the school board if they're not appropriately endorsed or licensed.
Okay.
So that's part of why I was saying, even now, I think we've gotten a total of maybe 10 candidates to even consider. Some of them are not even people that, you know, a couple of them were high school. Well, we can't use those. So those aren't even people that we would be looking to work through or vet. So it would be, you know, dwindling that list down to figuring out who would we actually like to consider, who do we think would be a good fit, and then are they properly licensed to fill the positions that we have available at that time.
Natasha, just one more quick one. We had,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, we had openings all the way through this school year. Is that correct? That we were not able to fill?
We actually were able to close all of our openings. Like right now, we only have one gen ed opening at one junior high, but we did carry into this year with several sped ed openings, and we also used those 3 emergency licenses that ISBE granted to fill the bilingual positions. So, you know, we did move some things around to try to cover any gaps that we had. So currently we are totally staffed with some emergency licenses. In SPED, there are, I believe we have 2 contractual staff that are in buildings for special education, and then 1 gen ed opening for someone who resigned, who was on disability and then resigned March-ish. But
Okay.
right now we are fully staffed. So this is just our projections for next year.
Yeah, and to have to go to that extent to make that happen, I applaud you for opening this door, you know, internationally, and it'll be a great opportunity for our kids. So good work.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or concerns that I can address for you?
Dr. Campbell-Tomanoff, I just would like to say thank you as well for bringing this forward for us. The idea of our students having the opportunity to have exposure to international teachers is an amazing one. In my previous district, we had international teachers from Spain, and it was incredible what they added to the depth of our cultural understandings in the district. And inspectors, just so you know, later on the consent agenda, the contract with this organization is there for approval as part of the consent agenda. So if you have other questions, you can ask them now, or if we need to pull the contract later for more questions, we could. But everything that's on the contract has been explained in the presentation. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that.
Thank you. I think it's, I agree with Eric. I think it's a great idea. And I think it is good for our children to be exposed to just what they have right here. And to realize that there's a whole world out there, and feel like they're able to move about in this world and not have to stay within the confines of our district or our community. That there are plenty of opportunities, And I think this will show them that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions or concerns?
Appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rouse?
Okay, so now my report. I have a brief presentation I want to walk through and then a couple of other things I want to share following that. So let me pull up the presentation and yeah, there we go. Okay, so you've probably seen in the news quite a bit lately about the American Recovery Program funding that's coming to school districts. And I want to make certain that we put this together as a point to be able to clarify that information, because it's not been presented in the media in exactly the most clear fashion. So let me see if I can help with the understanding. So during this presentation, I'm going to really look at the purpose of the funds, the projected allocations, which they are projected, allowable uses, and our next steps. Reminding us of our mission and vision and our equity definition as the means by which we make all decisions moving forward with these types of opportunities. Basically, the challenges that have been identified through ISB are the interruptions to traditional learning that have impacted students academically and social emotionally, and that lower income students and students of color are more likely to have experienced extended periods of disrupted learning during this past year. So the purposes of the funds, you'll notice there's 3 different pots listed here. So let's talk about what those are. The CARES money, we actually received in the spring, early summer of 2020. So that money has already been received, and it was for preventing, preparing for, and responding to COVID-19. The ESSER 2 money, ESSER being elementary, secondary schools emergency relief, I believe that's the acronym, this pot of money was approved by the federal legislature in December, and it was specifically identified to address unfinished learning and learning models. Now, you're going to see where we're going to use the words unfinished learning rather than learning loss. I don't believe our students have lost anything, but I think there is some learning that we need to continue and finish. The ESSER 3, or the ARP money, it's referred to in both different ways, is the most recent pot of money that was passed under the Biden administration in the stimulus bill. That money, 20% of it is for unfinished learning, academic, social, and emotional needs, and then underrepresented subgroups. So let me dig into that a little bit further. The allocations. For the CARES money, we received about $3.5 million. And again, that money has already been received, allocated. About 60% of those funds went to our technology needs because that was our biggest need at that time, was closing that digital divide for our students. The pot of money that was approved in December is an approximate projected allocation of $13.1 million. And we'll have until 2023 to expend that money. Again, these are all one-time monies. They are not expendable. They won't be replenished later down the road. The money that was just approved under the Biden administration's Stimulus Act, under the ESSER 3 or AARP, not AARP, sorry, the ARP, was an approximate projected allocation of $27 million. And the date we have to spend that by, I believe, is September 30th, 2024, as we get more information on that. Now, expenditures, as I mentioned, the CARES money has gone a lot toward technology needs, but also into the emergency response and PPE that we needed for the school sites. We don't have expenditures for ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 yet. The ESSER 2, the money has come to the state. Middle of March, they released a grant application that districts have to complete, submit, get approved, and then we have access to those funds. Much of this money is actually done as a reimbursable. It's not like we get a check and then just spend. We submit a grant and then we submit expenditure reports and then are reimbursed. The ESSER 3 ARP money, we won't have any more details on it other than just the basics, which I'll go through in just a moment, until after July 1st. The grant application, none of that is released until after that point. So those are still upcoming. The allowable uses. The funds can be spent on the following priority areas. We have summer or after-school programming, looking at how we're investing those in those time periods, academic supports, digital learning models, wellness and emotional support. That's another big piece, as well as professional development for our teachers, for all of our educators, learning models, both hybrid and remote learning models, making certain that we have what we need in case we need to go there again. Technology, hardware and software, family engagement, and making certain that our unrepresented subgroups have what they need. So resources, professional development, and coaching. So what are our next steps as we plan for the future? We're in the process of reviewing data, our district data and our building data, identifying what are the things we need at the district level. So what are those data trends across the district, but then also looking at building needs, looking at those data trends. Considering intervention materials, we need to really look at our tier 2 intervention materials and how we are approaching that notion of intervention and meeting the students where they're at and accelerating their learning to where they need to be. Social emotional supports, looking at our social emotional curriculum and what we need to add to that. Reviewing our professional development needs of staff so that we can have those pieces in place. So right now we're in the process of reviewing all the data, getting feedback. We had a really great principal meeting today where we got a lot of great feedback from the principals about building needs. And we're working on writing that ESSER 2 grant. We'll get it submitted, we'll develop our implementation and spending plans, purchase materials, and then get started with that money this summer with professional development, getting some student and family supports in place in our summer programming. Now, money is a good thing, but money can also be a challenge. So, you know, we want to make certain we look at those things very carefully. I want to go back to the slide where the money is, because as you saw if you followed the newspaper articles about the money, it made it sound like we were getting $42 million now. Well, that's not exactly the case when you see this is broken down over time. So that's why we wanted to make certain that everything is understood. I had a WJOL interview where I tried to explain this as well with Kevin Collins the other day. Had a great opportunity to help him with his understandings of the money as well. So at this point, I want to stop there and see if you have any questions. Federal money is interesting. It comes to the state. The state then may decide to keep part of it. That's something that different states handle different ways. Tamara always reminds us, don't count it until we know we have it. So we want to be careful that we're planning carefully, but we also know that this is one-time money. This is not money that is ongoing. So it's not like we can, if we hire any staff, they would have to be temporary staff because that money will go away. If we're putting into personnel, we have to be really careful about those ongoing costs. So we want to look at things that we can get and put in place and maintain and really support the programs that we have in a way that's effective and fruitful. So any questions or comments about that part of my presentation?
The only question I would have, Dr. Rouse, is there any way, I didn't see it in your buckets, is there any way we'd be able to squeeze in bricks and mortar work into any of that?
I'm going to ask Tamara to potentially help on answering some of these questions, as well as Anke. I don't believe we can do brick and mortar work unless it's related to like the air systems in a school building. So the air and ventilation systems, those kind of things I think are possible to put within that, that setting. We could also consider the, remember in the technology committee meeting, John was talking about the CBRS towers where we could extend our Wi-Fi to the family homes. That would fall under hardware and support for the digital divide and could potentially come from part of this money as well. So there are some things I think we could do facility-wise, but the 27 million that's coming out of the approximate 27 million, I'll keep saying approximate so that Tamara doesn't slap my hand later, but the out of that, remember 20% of that has to go for interventions for students. So looking at that unfinished learning. So so there are some restrictions in that regard.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. I'm just thinking, you know, those big ticket items that we've talked about.
Yep.
Be a nice bucket to.
Right, right.
Yeah.
We have to be careful what things we attach to certain buckets, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on the fund money?
Dr. Rouse, when you talk about the 20% to interventions, what would that look like? Is that when we talk about cultural proficiency, getting the things that those children need, making it available? What do we mean when we say that?
We've been talking a lot about how we need to, as we come back, the notion of personalization and looking at where each and every student is and where they need to be. So we could then further identify specific, maybe there's certain tutoring programs that we need to partner with. Maybe there's some that could be after school, maybe there's some that could be during the school day. But this could provide a good means for remembering that 27 million we have until September 30th, 2024 to expend it. So, you know, how it's about being strategic about how we would stretch that to look at how we could provide those additional academic supports for all the students that need them. So it could look a variety of different ways. It could be individualized tutoring. It could be group tutoring. It could be after school. It could be during the day. It could be before school. How that plays out to really help those students, to help all the students to be where they need to be as each year comes to an end. Because we do have some unfinished learning. I like saying it that way better than saying learning loss. Because I don't believe anybody lost anything this last year. We all survived a pandemic. So now how do we go from this point forward? So we'll have our spring benchmark is coming up, and the STAR 360 will have that to help us really look at how we launch forward with summer and into fall and move things at that point. So I think did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess for me, you know, knowing vaguely how some of this money was coming and addressing the serious concern of unfinished learning would be, for me, in my mind, to have extra parapros available. I mean, we have them in the kindergarten class, but I'm particularly looking at first and second grade, kindergarten, first and second grade, because that is, to me, where we absolutely have to try to catch up, put everybody on more of an equal footing, and yet there is the restraint of not hiring people.
Well, there's not a restraint. It's not that you can't hire people. You just have to hire with the understanding that they're temporary positions. So if we were going to
be more difficult to fill though, I mean, if somebody thought I'm hiring for a job, but you're not going to keep me very long.
Well, we could keep you 1, 2, or 3 years depending upon how that money plays out. So some people may want to only work for the next 1, 2, or 3 years, but there would be a full-time job, not part-time. We have a very hard time filling part-time parapro positions, but these could be full-time parapro positions potentially, if that's where we're going to, you know, put a bucket of money toward that that piece. And that also is an intervention for students as we roll forward. And I agree with you completely. First and second grade, we need to look at how we might want to use some of this money to provide those additional instructional supports through parapros in those classes. So yeah, there are some things we can do, but I think filling a temporary 1, 2, or 3 year position is going to be easier than filling part-time parapro positions.
Oh, I was thinking about full-time parapro positions,
right,
like we already have in the kindergarten program.
I agree. I make the point of the part-time is because we've tried to hire some additional parapros, but we only have been able to do part-time, trying to, again, be cautious with our money, because if you go beyond a certain number of hours, then there's benefits, all this sort of thing. But this money may allow us to hire more full-time parapros to help meet that need. I'd love to see that happen.
That's on the top of my bucket list.
Yeah, mine too.
More eyes, more hands, more observation, more interaction with those kids
Well, and fully training them, doing lots of professional development so that they can sit down with a group of students and help with that double dose of instruction or that additional support to help fill in the gaps. So yeah, it's critically important. I completely agree.
And what about social workers and psychologists? Is this something else that I'm sure we don't have a full cadre of what we need, but is this something else that we can use the money for as well?
Well, again, it would be temporary positions. So I would defer to Dr. McNeil on whether we need more or not at this time. We have, I believe, 33 social workers and counselors currently that we employ, and which is a pretty good number. When we speak in other regions and we tell them how many social workers and counselors we have, people are shocked and amazed that we have that many. But Dr. McNeil, would you see the need for more social workers and or psychologists potentially?
Potentially for psychologists, but I think for our social workers and our school counselors, we are staff adequate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the money, just so that we can be understanding that at a different level than what the media portrays?
Is there a possibility of having some type of a partnership with the high school as far as providing those extra internet access?
You mean like if we were to do the towers, could we partner with them?
Is that something that we could partner with them, possibly partner with the city? I mean, I know they're getting some money too. I mean, I'm sure that there's some way that we can divide up those costs, but you know, if we're providing all of that expense.
Well, here's what I'll say right off the bat. First of all, what we put up would only be able for our students' devices to connect to our internet. It wouldn't allow for anybody else's devices to connect. But putting up a tower and adding another antenna to that tower for like the high school district or the city, there are some possible partnerships, yes, that could help to defray some of the tower building costs, so to speak. Mr. Armstrong's already looking at some different models that we could bring to you to consider for what that could look like. And we've talked just in cabinet a bit about the idea of the high school district and the city for some possible partnerships to make that more fruitful. So I think this might be a great opportunity to really help squelch that digital divide in a very interesting way that would be much more cost effective than spending $500,000 on hotspot data plans, because that's not sustainable. So Jeff, you unmuted. Do you have something?
My concern that we hadn't talked about yet was not just the upfront capital costs, but ongoing maintenance, you know, all those types of things as we work our way through the years. We're, you know, again, with that being a one-time bucket,
right?
Where's that going to come from, right?
Well, and that's what Mr. Armstrong's working on as far as a full plan, so we can look at what would that be as far as ongoing cost if we were to go that way, and prioritizing where would be the areas of greatest need if we were going to do just a partial. You know, he'll have a full plan with multiple options that we can look at probably within the next couple of months, so that we can look at over the time of that money to see if we might be able to use some of it that direction. Because again, the hotspots, in my opinion, are not sustainable. It's too expensive to maintain them, and they're not as effective as we need them to be for those potential opportunities of online learning, and having the notion of that our network available in a ubiquitous fashion to all of our families' homes really is a game changer. Any other questions or comments about the funding presentation? Okay, there were just a couple of things from my report that I wanted to just point out just briefly. We did start IAR testing this week. Grades 5 and grades 8 are in testing this week. Next week will be grades 4 and grade 7, and then 3rd grade and 6th grade the following week, and then 5th and 8th will come back for science testing the first week of May. As it stands of today, this morning, I got the numbers brought forward. 41% of our students that are supposed to take the IAR have scheduled to take the IAR over the next 3 weeks. And that may sound disturbing, and it is a little bit, but we did also hear this week from ISB that the U.S. Department of Ed has granted the accountability waiver that ISB put forward. Now, what that accountability waiver does, we still have to take the assessments, but the impacts and effects of those assessments are lessened in the total process. So ISB will not be required to issue annual summative designations based upon the 2021 data. The factor of the 95% participation requirements is not required. They're not required to hold us to that. So the 41% won't hurt us where it would have previously. And they are not required to measure progress toward long-term goals and interim targets using the 2021 data. So the data it'll be what it'll be, because it's not going to represent the whole district, because not everyone will be taking the assessment, but we'll see what we can use out of it along the way. So there's some good and some okay news. We had about, I believe, 32% of our English learners take the access test. So that was even also a low percentage taking the assessments, but our principals are doing their best, and we're not twisting anybody's arms though. If people are not ready to come in, they're not ready to come in. The principals invited approximately 42% of our students were invited to come in for small groups, and about 20% said yes. So that tells me that we're in a situation where we're still not quite ready. But then when I continue to watch the positivity rates, just since last Friday, when I sent the information to you last Friday, the region positivity rate was 5.5%. As of today, it's 6.1. Our zip code data has gone up in all the zip codes. 60432 has gone up from, it was 7.69 that I reported to you on Friday. It's 11.67 as of today. 60433 was 7.14 last Friday. It's 9.75. The others have gone up, but not quite as high as those two. The overall for Joliet was at 4.46. It's up to 5.82. Statewide, the numbers have gone up. The positivity rate keeps ticking up. There are more and more. We've had, I believe, 8 or 9 days straight of increases in hospitalizations related to COVID, and the hospital bed utilization. We're getting really close to that. We're not supposed to go below 20%. We're just above it. It's just above 20%. So there's still some interesting virus news afoot. So we keep tracking that and keep looking at what we're doing and trying to make certain we're making wise decisions as we move forward. A couple of other things I just wanted to point out really briefly. I was invited to be part of the ISB advisory group. There was a group of superintendents, there's 20 of us, there's 20 principals and 20 teachers that were invited to come together. We've been working on a document that's going to be released statewide within the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. We begged them to not call it guidance, because we don't need another guidance document, and we don't need another 184-page document. So we really talked about it being considerations for the return to in-person learning for 21-22. And it's been a really fabulous conversation with superintendents from across the state in regards to what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what do we recommend as we move forward. We're still going to be dealing with COVID into the next school year. We all want to be in person, but we all recognize that we may still have to have some other options available based on the needs of some of our families. And so this document will help give some considerations for districts to think about in that regard. I was able to help with, there's a big section on equity that I was able to help specifically on, and then give input into the other areas as well. So we're going to have a meeting tomorrow afternoon to review the draft document one more time before we are able to send that out. Once it's made public, I'll send you all an electronic copy of it so you can see it as well. I think it speaks to the heart of us moving forward. The teacher feedback on lessons learned during this last year and what they want to take forward into the next school year. It's powerful, as well as what the principal contribution has been. So I was really, I felt really fortunate to be invited to be part of the 20 superintendents to represent on this advisory group. So that it was kind of exciting. So it was a fun group, very engaged group, and all of us very vocal about what we feel our needs are. There's been a zillion virtual conferences lately. It's like there's a conference every day almost. There's webinars constantly. NSBA's annual conference was virtual this year. They had some amazing speakers. I really enjoyed some of the speakers. So there's some specific focus on equity as well. The IASA conference was virtual this year, and that was pretty fabulous. I've been on the IASA PD committee, so I got to help moderate some of the sessions and help with with pursuing the question and answers after some of the sessions. They were really, really interesting. I don't know. It's been as much as I get tired of being in Zoom. I have learned so much by being able to be in so many webinars and Zoom meetings throughout the course of this pandemic year, and it's really been a nice piece. The National Superintendent's Roundtable, we meet monthly. We call it our group therapy sessions, and it's been fabulous. But what's come from that as well is a series of articles that my colleagues in the roundtable, and I'm going to be writing one as well, we're submitting to Education Week for them to run in their digital platform, lessons learned from the kitchen table. And it's each superintendent is taking a turn at writing a 600-word piece about something that they learned during this past year and how that's going to be impacting their work going forward. So we've got some great ones already written. I'm helping to shepherd that project through with the EdWeek editor. She's very excited at what we've given her so far. We're going to have about 25 to 30 submissions that they'll run a couple a week. And so when those start running, I'll make sure you see the link so you can go into the EdWeek online digital presence and see what those superintendents are all sharing. But they're all colleagues of mine in the roundtable, which has been just a fabulous group to keep moving forward. So any questions? Been busy.
No questions, but we appreciate everything you're doing. Busy
Thanks.
day, non-stop, but no, you're doing a great job. Thank you so very much. But yeah, no
Thank
question.
you. Thank you. Okay.
If nothing else, we'll go to Freedom of Information request.
So we've had several FOIA requests. You can see in board docs, there are several of them we've responded to. There's only 2 that we haven't responded to that came in most recently. One just came in today, and Stephanie updated the form to reflect those. So we're staying up on top of those, and Nick and Stephanie and Mindy do a great job helping pull all that information together. So that's the FOIA reports.
Okay, we will make a motion to go into closed session under the following exceptions. Section 2C1, appointment, employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, or hearing a complaint against an employee. Section 2C2, collective negotiating matters or deliberations concerning salary schedules for classes of employees. Section 2C9 and Section 2C10, student discipline and other matters relating to individual students. Section 2C11, pending, probable, or imminent litigation. Section 2C21, closed session minutes. Can we entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Stephanie?
Inspector Contos?
He's not in.
Okay. Inspector Pritz?
Aye.
Inspector Doris?
Aye.
Inspector Zeke?
Aye.
Inspector Ulmer? I see your mouth moving. Sorry, you're muted. I'll come back. Inspector Stanfield,
Aye.
Inspector Roberts,
Aye.
Inspector Ulmer,
You're muted, Gwen.
Just do this, just do a thumbs up. There you go.
Okay. Aye.
okay, wonderful.
Okay, motion carries. We will return. We'll reconvene the meeting. Dr. or Stephanie?
Yes. Sorry, I just have to get this. Okay, consent agenda. The action items listed under the consent agenda are routine business items that will be adopted by a single motion of the board unless a board member or the superintendent requests an item be removed from the consent agenda, discussed and voted on separately.
Okay, here are the items: minutes, committee meeting March, minutes, regular meeting March, minutes, closed session February, report number 129, destruction of closed session audio recordings, report number 130, resolution approving the treasurer's investments, report number 131, payroll, treasurer's reports and bills, report number 132, personnel report, compensation, hiring, promotion, termination, including resignation, discharge and retirement, change of status, report number 133, a resolution authorizing disposal of district personal property, curriculum materials no longer needed for school purposes, report number 134, gifts, report number 135, a resolution adopting an agreement with Spirit Cultural Exchange for an exchange visitor program for the school year 2021-2022.
Okay, are there any requests to remove an item to be discussed and voted on separately? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Stephanie?
Yes, Inspector Pritz,
Aye.
Inspector Doris,
Aye.
Inspector Zeke,
Aye.
Inspector Ulmer,
Aye.
Inspector Stanfield,
Aye.
Inspector Roberts.
Aye, motion carries. We will have opportunity for visitors to speak. Reading of public comments is limited to 3 minutes per comment. The board has established a 40-minute time period during each regular and special open meeting of the board for public comments with a 20-minute limit on any one subject. The full board policy is found in policy 2:230. Sandy, is there anyone who would like to address the board?
Yes, President Roberts, we have 2 comments tonight. The first comment is, what will the $40 million plus be used that the district will receive? From Karen Ward. And the second comment, good evening. I am wondering why the district is continuing to hold board meetings via Zoom or in a virtual setting when employees have been required to return to buildings 4 days a week with students in small groups. How does the district justify that they can operate the board meetings under the declaration of emergency? If proper safety precautions are in place, as they have been at all the school buildings, then the board meeting should be held in person. The meeting could still be streamed for the public, but the board members should be able to meet in person. Thank you for your time, Maureen Kroc. And that's it.
Thank you, Sandy. Do we have any other comments or questions from the board?
I appreciated, I just wanted to say I appreciated the musical program that we had this evening. It was very informative. I was very excited to see the mariachi performance. And I also enjoyed being able to do the virtual national conference. I really got a lot of wonderful information out of it. So being able to do that virtually for me, even though Zooming is a problem sometimes, it was really a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only comment was the extra work going in this week. Testing will have its own set of challenges, and so all the extra work that the teachers and building administrators and everyone's putting in to get the kids in and get them tested as it's mandated to us. We really do appreciate it. Just patience, and then we'll get through it. But thank you very much for all the extra time and effort that's being put in to get through this piece.
I agree with you, Jeff. Thank you. Any other board comments? Okay, we had a policy meeting at 6 p.m. Mostly editorial changes. If you did not attend, you missed a treat, huh? With Nick. So yeah, that was just editorial changes. Is there any other comments? No? Okay, seeing none, we will make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So moved.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Stephanie?
Inspector Pritz,
Aye.
Inspector Doris,
Aye.
Inspector Zeke,
Aye.
Inspector Ulmer,
Aye.
Inspector Stanfield,
Aye.
Inspector Roberts.
Aye, motion carries. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Good night.
Everybody
Good night.
safe.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Night.